Welcome back, everybody, for our year-end budgeting and planning made easy session. I know that there's a lot of interest in this session, and it's very topical for most of you right now. So it is my great pleasure to present Thomas Ironstone, who will be doing this session for us today. Thomas is our Director of Management Solutions. So Thomas, thank you very much for joining us, and I will hand it over to you.
All right, thank you, Angela. So in the session today, our experience over the past few decades in budgeting, planning, and forecasting, we're going to share what we've seen, key trends that are impacting organizations today, and we'll be going through 7 of those critical challenges that are impacting your FP&A process, everything from planning, budgeting, and reporting. We're going to go through a real-world case study today as well to talk about a particular use case as far as how an organization has rolled out this technology to be able to address budgeting and planning challenges. And then we'll go through reviewing 2 of the top budgeting systems that we work with and all of the features and how they can help your organization. And then we'll do a short live demo at the end just so you can see one of those solutions in action. So the 7 challenges that we've seen over the years in terms of budgeting and forecasting, first one probably rings the most true for most of you, and I'm sure you're probably going through the pain now if you're in the middle of your budget cycle. But a lot of organizations are mainly dealing with Excel, so largely manual Excel spreadsheet-based planning, budgeting, and reporting. And what ends up happening is there's so much time that's spent on the administration component of it, and not enough time actually spent on analysis. And of course, when we ask for quick turnarounds, it creates all sorts of pain because we need to go through all of those different workbooks, make links, pull everything together. And on top of that, it can be very error prone. So being a very manual process where we're linking together workbooks and formulas that, I'm sure we've all seen it, we might have someone that's manually overwritten a formula, or maybe the cells have shifted, so now the formula is referencing something else. So it creates all sorts of integrity challenges. And we're spending so much time trying to administer that process and spending very little time actually on the analysis process. A second challenge that we've seen is that the participants in the budgeting and forecasting process are unclear of the requirements. And you'll see this happen, although it's an important part of the organization and our FP&A and planning processes. Even though we do this every year, it seems that the participants in this process will forget or have amnesia in that what's involved in everything. And so having everything around the requirements, the milestones, deadlines, it's like we're teaching a new process from scratch every year, which is obviously quite onerous on the finance team. Another key challenge is really access, so that the contributors that are involved in the budgeting, planning, and forecasting process is that they have trouble accessing the latest files or the data. A lot of time when we're in a manual world with these Excel spreadsheets is that they're usually floating around in inboxes, on shared drives, or maybe on particular sites. And everyone's poking around everywhere trying to find the latest file. And there's 2 issues. One is that it creates a lag in the process because they're trying to find and locate the file when it should be something easily accessible at their fingertips. But the other one, which is actually quite dangerous, is that they might be pointing to an old, out-of-date file. And of course, they might go through all of that process to update the file, and then we find out that they've inputted everything in an old file, and it just creates so much issues. And then the last thing we want is to create any integrity issues with regards to the plan, the budgeting, and the reporting. Another challenge, which is actually quite common still, is that a lot of organizations, because they're living in an Excel-based world, is that, and also the contributors that are involved in the budgeting and planning process, which might not be finance folks, a lot of the time is that we keep on going back to having those individuals in the budget process inputting data that are purely dollar-based budgets. So for example, they're preparing their revenue forecast for the year. They might just be going in and keying in dollar values. Or on the expense side, maybe if we're looking at payroll planning, workforce planning. Again, they might be doing a couple offline calculations and putting something into the spreadsheet. And preparing these purely dollar-based budgets are challenging because when we're trying to go through the build out, it's not very meaningful to the individuals that are preparing them because they're just putting in a dollar value. They're not thinking through how that's built up and the drivers of that. And the second part of it is that when we come to the analysis side of things, we're trying to understand variances. Is the variance coming from, say, the quantity, the volumetric, or is it coming from the rate or a mix? And those key pieces are important to understand and perform analysis, and also allow the business partners to be able to make decisions and understand what's actually driving those variances. So again, critical for the buildup and also analysis, and not being able to do that creates a lot of challenges, as well as makes the budget and forecast not very meaningful. Another issue is the slow turnaround for budget revisions. So as you can imagine, when you're going through the annual budget process and everything's built up, it goes to the executive team. The executive team, they want to make some top-down adjustments. And this happens in so many organizations. And now the onus is put on the finance team because they can't really go back to the business leaders to say, okay, these are the top-down adjustments they want to make. They can't go to the business leaders and say, okay, adjust your budget so it matches that. So that top-down, bottom-up creates a lot of challenges. And it's a very slow turnaround time because if we do ask them to do it, it's not going to happen overnight. So they're going to have to go back to the spreadsheets, build them up, link everything back together. It's just not going to happen. And then it's the finance team that's doing it. They're going to try and do some top overlay to what was done to the initial buildup, and then you lose the connection to the underlying budget in terms of how it's been built up. So it creates all sorts of issues from a turnaround perspective and also what the final result is. Another challenge, the sixth challenge, is that accounts are not synchronized with the accounting system. So again, because if you're living in the Excel-based world with budgeting, planning, and reporting, is that if you're adding new accounts, new cost centers, departments, those don't automatically get reflected in your Excel spreadsheets that you've created for budgeting or reporting. And then you have to manually go through, whether it's one workbook or multiple workbooks, and start updating all of those. And it creates so much pain because you don't want to waste your time spending, again, administrating it when it's something that should be automated with your accounting package. And then finally, constantly recreating reports and presentations when data revisions are made. So whether that's revisions coming from the budget forecasting process, or maybe updates to actuals that are flowing through from your accounting package. And so again, that's a big pain. So as you imagine, you're going through that budget process, the board executive presentations, board presentations, and then when there's a change made at the last minute, you have to go through and update all of your PowerPoint presentations and copy and paste slides and charts and tables into the slides. And it's so manual and it creates all sorts of pain. And it's, again, it creates also stress on, say, the finance team, which is going through all the preparation to be able to build out those packages. So the tip one to actually help with the first challenge is to streamline and automate your templates. As you can imagine, you've been working in Excel for many years, great tool, but when it comes to making all of these updates, again, it's very manual because you're doing it in spreadsheets and you have to go out, update the different workbooks and send them out. So they're not created as an advanced enterprise planning tool. So the idea is that you want to be able to have a system where you can create those structured templates which do not have to be recreated each year. So meaning that if you have a template that exists for inputting your operating expenses, a template for building up your revenue or sales budgets, your template for building out your workforce planning, you want to just have one template, and if you need to make an update, you're not going to multiple workbooks and be able to update and roll them out. You just want to do it in one place and having that structured template so then you don't have to recreate that process and administer it every year. You also want to automate the process so that the budget data in the templates is captured and automatically written into a centralized data source. And what do I mean by that? as you can imagine, there's all these different folks that are involved in the budgeting process that are inputting data, and then it's in spreadsheets. And then before, what you would have had to do is go to those different spreadsheets, link it all together into reports to see what the total buildup is. So the idea when you're working with modern budgeting, planning, and forecasting applications is that data that's being input into those templates is being automatically written back to a database, which reporting is pulled from. And so as they're building out their budgets, you're able to see that real-time roll-up of what the actual budget is. And so that allows, from a conversation perspective, making it more interactive between the leaders of the organization and the budget owners to be able to see how the budget's rolling up and be able to make it more collaborative to provide that feedback. Another thing is when we create these templates is that they're multidimensional. So again, I gave those examples of operating expenses, a revenue template, the workforce planning template. So in these applications, they tend to be multidimensional in the sense that we're not creating, like you would in Excel, a replica of the workbook to give to Department A, a replica of the workbook to give to Department B, and then after the fact, you need to pull it all together. So in these applications, the idea is that you create one template and they're multidimensional, meaning that you give access to the individuals involved in the budget process, and the one template can be filtered through for the different departments or cost centers, for example. And again, from a security standpoint, the systems lock it down that we have the one template that's say for operating expenses, and then if I'm in one department versus another, I'm not going to see other people's data. And if I'm an administrator of the budgeting process, forecasting process, if I make a change to a template, all departments are going to see it automatically. The next tip is to ensure clarity in the budgeting process and cycle. And again, this is something that happens every year, people forget. So an important part, just from a business process standpoint, is to establish a clear and consistent communication plan, and it needs to be endorsed by the leaders. Not a lot of folks that are not in finance, even the finance team in some case doesn't really enjoy it too much, but the business leaders don't really enjoy the budgeting process in the first place. So there's sort of two things that are happening here. One is we want to make sure that this whole budgeting forecasting process becomes a more integrated component of their business duties, of their job requirements, of their job description, so that it's a more natural part of when they're thinking through building out their plan for the year, that they're thinking of how it's impacting them throughout the year. What are the key things that they should be monitoring? And so the business leaders need to endorse this. They need to say that this is a critical part for running the business. Obviously, one is for managing, obviously, the bottom line, making sure that things don't fall off the rails, for one thing, but the other side is to also manage growth and to make sure that proper funding, investments being done in the different areas of the organization. And so with that, as we're heading into the budgeting cycle, we want to make sure that individuals understand the vision, what we're trying to accomplish, but also understand where they're involved in that planning and budgeting process, what tasks are required of them, and when they're due by. So having that visual, transparent workflow with milestones and deadlines goes a very long way. It allows individuals to refer back to that plan as they're going through the budget cycle, and then as they're going through the different forecasting cadence. The next tip to address the third challenge is to make all budgets and data accessible. So no matter where folks are, as you can imagine, it gets down late in the budget cycle. Sometimes people leave it to the very last minute to prepare their budget, which is painful and it should not be done. They should be doing it well ahead of time so they can get feedback. But when it reaches that last day when they need to complete their budget, we've all been on the receiving end of it, that someone's trying to find where that latest file is. Can you resend it to me? Can you tell me where it is? And not only is it annoying because it's the last minute and all these the flood of emails come in or IMs come in, but also you know that if they're doing their last day, that it's probably not going to be that meaningful. So one key thing is we want to overcome that hurdle in terms of making it accessible. So no matter where the budget contributors are, we want to make it easy for them to prepare, update, and submit their budgets and forecasts on time. So you want to be able to provide a variety of ways that they can access it, whether it's through their web browser or even providing an Excel option for offline viewing and even data collection. So for the first one, obviously web access, as long as they're connected to Wi-Fi, they're able to access the budget and reports. And from an Excel integration standpoint, that if they need to go offline, if they're going on a plane, I know now Wi-Fi is available on the plane, but to use that excuse to say, I won't have access to it even though it's cloud-based, having that offline option to even start updating the budgets while they're flying, it will give them that additional time to be able to build out their budget and not have that additional excuse. So again, just making it more accessible for them. The next tip is moving towards more driver-based planning. So avoid doing purely dollar-based budgets. So where possible, try to understand the underlying drivers of the financials and make the templates calculation driven. So some examples of that are using unit-based rates, where the budgets are actually built up off of quantity and a cost rate or a selling price, for example. So then you're able to flex the budget, do different scenario planning, where you say, what happens if number of transactions go up? What happens if number of hours go up? If we require more deliverables, more projects, those types of things. So you're able to play with the budget, play with the volume, play with the rates, and understand what the impact will be on your overall budget. So not only does it make it more meaningful from analysis perspective, but also for the individuals that are preparing it, they're thinking through in terms of the actual drivers of the budget as opposed to just trying to put together a dollar amount, say 10% over last year. Another thing is to speed up the turnaround for budget revisions. So today we're going to be looking at modern budget platforms. And so the ability to automatically aggregate the budget data real time is critical so that management gets early access to it and they can provide some input earlier in the process. So that reduces the turnaround time to update those budget revisions. The second last item, synchronize account system, synchronize the chart of accounts with the accounting system, is that the linkage thing, the integration thing that I mentioned earlier. So this eliminates all of that manual process of trying to export the chart of accounts, linking it into the budgeting templates, updating all of those sheets and reports. All of that should be automated. It shouldn't be a manual process for you. And then finally, don't present outdated data. So having a modern corporate performance management platform, a budgeting and planning platform, it's all linked into the data. So whether it's your budgets, your forecasts, your actuals, so when you have your suite of reports, so whether that's your variance analysis reports, your financials, your management reporting, your charts, your dashboards, your PowerPoint presentations, your Word documents, anything that's tapping into that budget, forecast, or actuals data, that as it gets updated, you're not going to a million places to update everything, copy and paste. A lot of these modern platforms have those linkages built in that if you update in one place, everything gets updated for you. And so one, reducing the turnaround time, the manual effort, but also allows you to spend more time on analysis and then ensuring when you're in that presentation that you're not presenting out of date, inaccurate data. Everything gets updated automatically. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about a use case, Ottawa Sports Entertainment Group. So this particular organization, it's a very interesting use case, and I love to talk about it when we're talking about FP&A, budgeting, planning, just because all of our organizations are very different. And so as you can imagine, for an organization like this, they have some common things across a lot of organizations, regardless of industry, and some very unique things. And so this talks a bit about the flexibility in terms of what you can actually roll out in these budgeting, planning, and forecasting applications. So first off, the scale of everything. There's over 100 games and events each year. There's over 34 departments and actually 10 companies. So spanning from sports, entertainment, retail, you name it, lots of different things. And all the common back office services like finance, IT, HR, recruitment, all of that. They had limited integration between their finance systems and their underlying subsystems. So they have, say, for example, the accounting packages as well as the operational systems that are not necessarily finance related, like ticketing systems, for example. And so all these systems that they need to pull data from, and it's going into spreadsheets and reports and planning, and it's just very painful. And also reliability issues. I mentioned out-of-date spreadsheets, which can create all sorts of challenges and issues. So the project was to build out an application that will allow them to plan for the different areas of the business. So these applications, they can be tailored to meet your exact needs. So first off, they required templates for planning, budgeting, and expenses by games. So they have the different sports teams, and they need to be able to plan all of the revenue, the variable expenses, the fixed expenses, and also some of the overhead expenses that need to get allocated out to those groups. They also needed to build out templates that were for events, so being able to budget out the revenue and expenses, and again, be able to do allocations to it. And then for the different types of workforce across the teams and the back office, they need to be able to integrate with their payroll system and help them plan workforce, being able to ensure that salaries and benefits are all calculated correctly and phased correctly in terms of the timing when different payroll taxes get capped out. And then roll out all of the reporting, statement of earnings that's brought over from their ERP system with historical actuals data, as well as all of the budgets and forecasts, and then preparing, automating the monthly reporting package in the platform, whether that's directly in the platform, as well as having some Excel packages that they could distribute as well. So this was a great use case that we're able to roll out, and it's reduced turnaround time and it's provided more value in terms of analytics to the organization. So now to go through features to look for in the new budgeting and planning system. So first, the top layer, some things you might want to look for are accessibility, as I mentioned. So we talked about the key things that you want to be able to address those challenges, make it accessible. So whether it's mobile, web, on the go, being able to push reports out to people. So that's the broadcasting component. So that's a feature you might want to look for. Collaboration, the tool should allow multiple people into the system to be able to collaborate on those budgets and forecasts, review reports, and not make it a delayed process where they can't view it or they have to wait for certain milestones. And also scalability. So as your organization grows and changes, you want to make sure that you're not just investing in, say, the lowest cost platform, but it's a platform that will continue to grow with you over time as your organization grows and changes. The second layer around reporting is to make sure that it's self-service, so folks can go in, pull their own reports, do drill downs, filtering, things like that. Also exception-based reporting and alerts, so if a threshold is exceeded in terms of budgets or trending in terms of expense spend, they can get an early response. And then obviously all of the C-level stuff, visualizations, dashboards, you want to be able to pull that out of it. The second last layer is around process controls, so being able to have security, access controls, so people can only see certain modules or cross sections of data in terms of departments, business units. You want to have workflow in place so that they're ensuring that certain people are only accessing certain components. And then the bottom layer are some of the advanced things, so the ability to do top-down adjustments, being able to accommodate multi-company, multi-currency, and all of the build-up in terms of that driver-based planning that I was talking about. So the two top budgeting and planning and forecasting systems that we look at are Board and IDU. So Board is an enterprise application. It does everything from scorecarding, planning, reporting, analysis, you name it. It's a very scalable platform that's very modeling based, and you can really accomplish a lot with it. In IDU, also a fantastic platform. I'd say more in the SMB space, and this platform allows, again, to do full end-to-end budgeting. Some great thought has been gone into building out this platform to make it very effective, and it's driven to enable non-finance users to be able to get into the budgeting system and not thinking from it from the standpoint of a finance hat, but from a business user hat. So a quick comparison, I'm not going to go through all of these, but with these two systems, they're both integrated with Business Central. They're able to connect into the application, pull the data. If you have other systems as well, they can connect and integrate with the data. They have self-service reporting. It varies in terms of access to browser or Excel. They can both automate your financials. A different approach is taken for each. Some are mapped based on groupings and some are mapped based on range logic. And again, just a different approach to the planning and budgeting. If you have any financial consolidation requirements, they both can accomplish it. If you're multi-entity, there's intercompany you need to accommodate. They both have it. They're different approaches to how they accomplish it. And for data visualization, one key difference here is that IDU leverages Excel, Power BI for the visualization piece, and Board has its own internal visualization capabilities. So it's a one toolkit to build out your budgeting, planning, reporting, as well as your dashboarding all in one place.
Hi, Tom. Just a reminder that we have about 5 minutes left in the session.
Fantastic. Thanks, Angela. So a quick overview of each. So IDU's been around since '97. It's recognized by Gartner as a top 10 corporate planning application, and it builds accountability for non-finance managers, as I mentioned. It's web-based across multiple browsers. It can be hosted or it can be in the IDU cloud. So if you have your own cloud-based infrastructure and you want it rolled out there, you can, or you can use the IDU cloud. So IDU, again, it's intended to be more of an SMB type application. So it provides template building and it's fit into a very specific structure. So some features of it is that it's designed to be easily deployed, easy to manage, tight security, and a lot of this is because it's in a fixed structure. And so that's where the two applications differ, is that IDU is a fixed structure budgeting platform and Board's more of a modeling platform. And so with IDU, because that fixed structure, it allows us to go through different cycles of the budgeting, updating data sets, recalculating and reviewing results, and doing different scenarios. And with Board, this is an all-in-one platform, again, a modeling tool designed for enterprise strategic level organizations that want to do everything from planning, budgeting, and forecasting, what-if simulations, strategic management, scorecards, predictive analytics, financial consolidation, and advanced dashboarding. It's intended to be an intelligent planning platform, having all the cross sections across the organization, whether it's finance, supply chain, retail, human resources, or sales. And then from a user experience standpoint, it's highly visual. So everything from the calculations, the navigation, look and feel, it's all highly tailored within the platform using Board's toolkit approach. So again, some quick screenshots here. I'm going to just open it up shortly, but driver-based planning, you can build out your templates, your rate sheets to be able to drive and flex the budget. In Board, you can also store documents, text, annotations, pictures, and be able to embed them right into templates and reports. Reforecasting, doing simulations, automating your report packages, executive briefing books directly in the platform that you can flip and drill down into, charts and dashboards, scorecards, strategy maps. And Angela, before I hand it back over, I'm just going to quickly show that this is all real as well. And so with this here, what you're seeing is this is an example of Board, again, just to give you a flavor. So in here, you can have all of your executive briefing books. So you can flip the data as opposed to having a hard copy printout. You can actually have these reports build out directly into the platform. And so as you build out your reports, your budgets, everything's automatically updated and it's at your fingertips. And you can even integrate with Excel and PowerPoint. So you can actually download these workbooks that are linked back to your budget data, your GL data that's coming from, say, Business Central, and you're able to update those reports automatically as opposed to having to prepare them. And I'll just quickly show you that, and then we'll open it up for questions. All right. So this Word package, it's all linked back to data. So as you can imagine, a big time saver here. All of these charts, all of these data points are actually linked back to the database. So as data gets updated in the planning platform, you can essentially refresh these and you don't have to go through, copy everything out and paste it in. Everything in here automatically gets updated. So again, big time saver. All right. So I'll leave it there. Angela, I'll hand it back to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Tom, for that excellent presentation and those great tips on making the budgeting process easier. We don't have any questions at this time. I will remind people that the handout for the professional development hours is now available in the handout section on the right-hand panel of the GoToMeeting screen. So you can download your certificate at that area. That doesn't become active until the certificate gets posted there. So I know people were asking about that. They may not have seen it earlier. It is there now. If you've missed any of the certificates from any of the other sessions, please feel free to email us at ask@quisitive.com, or you can email me directly at angela.gillis@quisitive.com, and we will absolutely make sure that we get those certificates over to you. Thank you again, Tom, for that excellent presentation. A reminder to our attendees to please take a minute to complete your post-session survey. We really appreciate your feedback. Any comments or suggestions that you have for future sessions as well would be very much appreciated. And just a reminder that you will get an extra entry into the draw that we're doing at the end of the day for some great prizes. Our next session will be at 3 o'clock. So starting shortly, and it's going to be on elevating your customer experience with Microsoft Dynamics CRM. So we look forward to seeing everybody then. Thank you again to our attendees, and thank you, Tom, for that great presentation. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.